What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Cashflow podcast. Today we have Dominique Gunderson. How are you doing today, Dominique?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for being on. I'm super excited to get into your whole business. But first, why don't we just start off and just talk about how did you get into real estate investing in the first place?
Totally. I started in real estate super young. It's kind of rare, I guess. Most people kind of find it along the way, but real estate was always something that even from like 14, 15, 16 years old, I knew that I wanted to do for a career. So it kind of made my path a more straight line, just skipped over college, knew that, as soon as I got out of high school and could start working, that's what I was going to start doing. And that's exactly what I did. I graduated at 17 and started working in real estate full time.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you have any, did your parents invest in real estate? Did you have any relatives or friends that invested in real estate? Or is it just something you picked up off of maybe podcast or a book or something?
To be honest, I did not have anyone specifically in my life that was in that business or truly inspired me to do it. But when I was in high school, neither of my parents had ever owned real estate even or owned a house. But my mom had gotten a position to buy her first house when I was in high school. And so that was kind of my first even just, idea of what even is real estate. What does it mean to buy a house? What's a realtor? All these things. So around that time, the time of the year, or the year, I guess, that she was buying was when a bunch of the foreclosures had hit the market in 2012, 2013. So she had ended up buying a kind of fixer-upper short sale home, and that was really what sparked my interest in the whole flipping idea. Just seeing, the market being flooded with all of these houses that needed a lot of work. They were selling for a really good price, and there was opportunity to add massive value and create massive wealth. So that was really what hooked me and kind of gave me the idea of a path to maybe take with real estate in the future.
That's awesome that you get to see that see that at such a young age, to see your mother get into real estate, buy her first house, but also the the value of adding, tons of appreciation into a property by either fixing it up or just buying at the right time and letting the market do the work. So that's awesome that you got into that. So you knew you were doing real estate investing, right? So what'd you do to take the first steps in your business?
The very first thing that I did was I started working for a real estate agent. So just someone who was really successful. I grew up and still live now in the Los Angeles area, so really high-end, beach cities market. And I honestly just found one of the top agents that was doing the most volume in production, and I reached out and asked if I could work with him. I was super upfront, look, I'm 17, I'm going to be literally walking out of my high school graduation into working with you, but I want to get started, I want to do this. And he said yes, and he was looking for someone that, he could kind of train up or mentor. So that was where I started. I worked for just under 2 years, my first 2 years out of high school under him, literally just learning everything there was to know about real estate in general, not even flipping or construction or investing. It was a main focus on sales, and marketing, and selling yourself, and how to talk to people, and how to read contracts, and all those types of things. So that's where I started, and then that led me into getting started in the real estate investing world, which is what I had always wanted to do, and that's when I began wholesaling.
Gotcha. That's super interesting that, I talk about it a lot on this podcast is, if you want to, succeed in, let's say real estate or real estate investing, you got to add value to someone that's in that space already and learn from them. You have to have some type of mentor. And it's interesting because you didn't want to become a real estate agent. You just wanted to, learn real estate. So that's why you surrounded yourself with a real estate agent. But your main focus was real estate investing the whole time, right?
Correct.
Wow, that's awesome. No, that's great. So after you gained, after those 2 years, you obviously learned and just found out everything, the ins and outs of the real estate, just in general. what you started your wholesale business. What did you do first off, as far as picking a market, and where did you do the wholesaling, and then where did you find your education for wholesaling?
Yeah, those are great questions. So I honestly did not have much education at that point as far as all of those questions, like where to start, what was wholesaling, how did it work, all these things. I had just heard that it was kind of like a good way to get started, and at that point even, I still knew that my goal was to buy homes to fix, flip, or fix and keep as rentals to run my own investing business. But I needed capital. I was like 19. I didn't have capital at all. So I had heard that wholesaling was a great way to kind of get started, work under, other investors or work with them who were actually buying these deals and make a fee along the way for each deal I did. So I didn't know much, and that was probably what led to my decisions, because it was just what was easiest. I wholesaled right where I lived. I did it all here in Los Angeles. I didn't even really think at the time of going anywhere else. And I actually had an opportunity, which was really cool and unique. Sort of think of it like a real estate team. Like if you worked, there's one person who has a bigger name and they create like a team and they all kind of work together. I actually found a small group of people that was doing a very similar thing to that with wholesaling here in Los Angeles. So that played so much into my education as well, because although I was doing my own deals, I was working alongside a bunch of other people who were doing their own deals, and we were all kind of doing the same thing, the same office. And so it was really very cool to be able to pick everybody's brain and everybody kind of help each other. And then once I had started doing a bunch, to be able to kind of pour that knowledge into other people too. So I honestly went into it pretty blind, and very similar to working in the real estate agent office, just like learned as I went from the other people that I was surrounded with.
That's great. No, I think that wholesaling is a great way for someone that has, at the time, like you said, little capital, to gain the capital. That way they can put it into rentals or a flipping business. But, one thing that I did want to mention is, with you talking about putting yourself around people, putting yourself in the position to be around people that wholesale, you are getting more comfortable with the transaction, because although wholesaling, you don't end up keeping the property, you're still going through the transaction and you're getting more comfortable with it, so that, now obviously we're going to talk about your flipping business, but now you're getting more comfortable with all the terms and comfortable with all the dates and, the earnest money, everything like that, which I think is huge, and probably played a huge role in your success so far. So, once again, I just want to commend you on, surrounding yourself with people that are in the business and that where you want to be, and then, being a small fish in a big pond, if you will. So, you're gaining traction. You're building up some capital from the wholesaling and everything like that. Where do you go from there?
Yeah, to your points that you just made, like, that was definitely a huge factor, I think, to my success in being able to do flips. Man, if I would have just started doing flips, which is what I wanted to do, I just actually couldn't because I didn't have the capital, the resources. I honestly probably would not have been as successful, or started. I might have lost money right away or something, because there's so many details to learn just in closing escrow on a property, like not even the renovation or anything, just acquisitions alone. So yeah, absolutely huge point that you made there is just like learning it piece by piece, getting really good at the acquisitions, then going into flipping, getting much better at managing construction and all the other pieces, but being able to feel really confident about the first part, just buying properties, getting contracts, was huge. And I honestly don't think I would have jumped into flipping until I felt super comfortable with that, which is pretty much what I did. I don't know exactly, but somewhere in the 40 to 45 range of wholesale deals in about a year and a half. And then I decided that, okay, I've seen it all, not everything obviously, but pretty good variety of like different problems that arise and different situations. Somebody's inheriting the property, or it's vacant, or there's renters, or all these different things. So I felt that it was a good time for me to now go and take my own risk with my own money and jump into flipping. And that's when I branched out and started at 21 with the flipping. And I was, all my experience at this point. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. I was just say why. I was just gonna say why'd you wait so long till 21 to do it? But totally joking there. That's absolutely amazing. When you go from wholesaling to flipping, obviously, like you said, it's gonna be more risk on you. But how did you do start that out in California, or did you
Yeah,
spread
so
out to a different state?
yeah, definitely. There would have been so much more risk if I would have done it in California. That was the point where I decided, you know what, I've done a lot of deals here. It'd be the easy thing to just jump right into this market. I know everybody here and all of that. But ultimately, it just boiled down to I only had so much capital that I had saved up, and I didn't want to risk losing like huge amounts of it. So I felt that it would be a better opportunity to look in a cheaper market where I could invest what I had made. And even if something went wrong, maybe I lost $5,000 versus like 50,000. So that was when I decided to jump out of California, and the market that I chose was New Orleans to start investing in flips.
Gotcha. Okay. So, is there any reason why you picked New Orleans, and how'd you kind of build your team?
Yeah, the reason for New Orleans was mainly because I had somebody that lived there that I really trusted, and it was like an easy place for me to go and visit. My dad lived out there, and so even just starting the market research, like, hey, I could call him and be like, hey, what neighborhoods or what towns do you think I should avoid? What are like the key streets where, you see a lot of like, gang activity, or like they tend to be more dangerous or whatever, like help me just understand the market. So having someone that I really trust that lived there was kind of key for me. And that just was one of few people that I really trusted that lived in an inexpensive market. So it kind of narrowed me down there. But that was like the first step of just market research, figuring out what neighborhoods, what cities was I going to buy, what types of properties, what price points, all of those things. And once I had done that, I honestly just jumped right in. My team did not build on day one. I bought a project. I started working on it, had somebody that was doing the construction, had a realtor that was working with me, all these things. And honestly, like none of those people that were working on that first deal still work with me today. It's all kind of like a trial and error thing of working with some people, seeing how it works. Maybe it works kind of good, maybe it doesn't work good, but you find areas to improve, and you start interviewing more people and working with more people and seeing, who fits the role best and which areas you can improve on every deal you do.
Yeah, it's kind of like trial and error. And, piggybacking on what you were saying, to have someone boots on the ground in the area that you invest, if you're out of state, is huge, because you could just shoot them a text. Like you could shoot your father a text and just say, hey, can you drive by this property and see what it's like, take pictures, take a video for me, which is huge. And, having someone that you really trust is a huge influence on picking a market, which it's okay to pick a market that you have someone in, to invest in. So I think that's huge. Also, I want to know, just because I personally haven't done any flipping or wholesaling, I've ventured into wholesaling, and I learned a little bit about it, but I'm just curious as far as, is the marketing kind of the same for wholesaling and flipping as far as finding off market deals?
It's very similar. Honestly, the only thing I think that's different between those two is the exit strategy. Like, you're still looking for the same types of deals with the same types of profit margin, potentially in the same neighborhoods or market, wherever is like kind of the hot area to buy in your market. The only thing that ends up being different is you either close on it and keep it and flip it, or you sell it to somebody else to close on it and they're going to flip it. But they're probably looking for a similar margin as well. So running the numbers and getting the deal at a similar value is going to be quite the same for either process.
Yeah. So do you personally find majority of your properties off market?
I do, a very good majority of them. I always keep my eyes on the market and just, see if anything pops up that I think I can make work, and reach out to the agent really quick to see if we can strike a deal. But probably like 90 to 95% of my deals are off market.
Yeah, and off-market deals, direct-to-seller deals, I personally believe are one of the best ways to get the most profit margins on a deal. So let's go ahead and just take an overall look at right now. So what do you have going on in your businesses as far as how many houses are you flipping? Are you still wholesaling? And what's your business kind of structured as?
Great question. Yeah, today I typically keep somewhere between 5 and 6 renos going at any given time for the flips. Right now, kind of where we're on track and goal target wise for the year is to buy somewhere between 15 to 20 projects this year. Majority of those, if not all of them, would probably be flips. Maybe hold like one of them or two. Kind of looking forward, that's my goal. As volume increases for buying more and more, I want to start holding more of them and keeping them as rentals, and then just flipping the ones that aren't quite as good for a rental return. But right now, main focus is on flipping, and the only ones that I wholesale right now are just if I buy anything that has a really heavy rehab, something that's just going to take too long and be too much of an investment for me. I kind of try to stay away from those. And so I'll just either wholesale or wholetail those types of ones.
For people that don't know, can you just explain real quick wholesale and difference between wholesale and wholetail?
Sure. Wholesale is basically you just own the rights to the contract. So you put a property under contract, and during your escrow period of instead of you actually closing on the property, you take that time to sell the rights to that contract to somebody else who's going to buy it. Wholetail is where from the start you don't have any intention of actually keeping that property to flip or rent or whatever, but you still close on it yourself with your own funds, and you leverage the competitiveness of the open market. And as soon as you close on the deal, you go ahead and just list it publicly on the MLS for the same type of investor buyers to make you offers on, but you typically get a lot more offers and for higher pricing, because you're not just leveraging your own buyers list or the people you might have sent that wholesale deal to. Now you're leveraging any person in the world who can see your house up for sale and make you an offer.
So what would just thinking about it, just in my mind right now, I guess it limits the risk as far as having to go in there and do the work and maybe, over budget or under budgeting and doing more work and, having the costs too high. So I guess the real, benefit of that is not having to do the work to it. You just find the deal, close on it, and then resell it.
Yeah, that's correct. And you have to analyze each one to see what is the best strategy for each individual deal. And usually kind of how I'll look at it is if, say I'm trying to target somewhere between like 30 and 50 grand profit on my flips if I do a fix and flip renovation. If I can make somewhere in that range or really close to that range by just wholetailing or wholesaling the deal, I would much rather not take the risk, not do the whole renovation, and just, even if that deal might have made 60 and it might have made a little bit more if I did the whole deal, but I can make 30 now by just, wholetailing it or wholesaling it. That's kind of my thought process of that. Whereas if it's a slimmer deal, wholesale wise, I could only make 5. I'm going to go ahead and just do the flip and try to make the 30 or 40.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, 20 flips in a year, that's a lot for anybody. So first question, is this your full-time, are you a full-time real estate investor?
I am.
Okay, perfect. And, do you have someone that helps you overlook, or are you 100% overlooking all the flips right now and dealing with contractors and dealing with everything?
I have some people on my team, and the team, for the most part, is actually there on the ground. So I'm one of the only people that is actually remotely overseeing things. There's a huge weight taken off of me from what my team does on the ground. For example, my real estate agent is amazing. I don't even really do anything when it comes to the resale. She stages it, she gets the right photos, she filters through all the activity and the offers and just basically tells me which one is the best and what's going to net the most. She handles everything. So I feel like there's so many things like that, steps in the process that are totally off my plate, even though I'm still kind of overseeing it. A lot of the things of oversight is simply just saying like, yes, that's a good decision, or no, let's do this instead, versus actually putting in all the work to get to that place where you're calling the decision yes or no. So yeah, my team on the ground is huge in being successful in this as it's continued to scale. You have to have like more people involved that are fairly involved in making the decisions so that I don't have to do every little thing.
Yeah, you mentioned before that you kind of got to trial and error everything as far as contractors, just to find the perfect fit. And just for people that may be interested in getting into flipping, how does that work out when you're doing a flip and you're out of state? So is there like a weekly update with a checklist as far as what needs to be done? Is it completed? How do you just as far as going from closing on a property, having the contractors in there to getting it ready? How do you what's the weekly I guess I don't know how to say it. the weekly checklist. Let's just go with checklist. Weekly checklist with a contractor.
Yeah, I think most contractors will operate differently, so you'll have to kind of get a feel for who you're working with and their personality and yours. One thing that was pretty important to me when choosing someone that I wasn't going to just do a deal here or there with, but really scale up the operation and kind of have them oversee the majority of it, is picking someone that was really aligned with my personality. So I'm like very detail oriented. I'm on top of everything, like very organized, want updates all the time and want to know the details. So I definitely chose somebody who I felt could also do that for me in certain areas where like I'm going to need more updates than your other clients that are there and walking the job site every day themselves. So somebody who was super like looking for the business, looking to scale with me, right? And know that as we do a project and then 2 and 3 and 4, like you're going to grow as I grow. So that was huge for me, finding someone that wanted that and was willing to jump on the phone with me every other day or twice a week and just kind of like go over the details like, hey, we need more materials at this job, or this one's just finishing out, I need a payment, and like just also very organized, very on top of managing multiple sites and able to keep me really in the loop. We jump on FaceTime all the time too, like utilize technology to really, keep me physically there even when I'm not. Just feel like I have eyes on everything.
Yeah, and in a time like this where it's so hard to find a good contractor, what would you say that it's beneficial for you as someone that's building a business around flipping to go to a contractor? And do you think offering and saying, look, we're going to grow our business together, if you do a good job on the first deal, I'm going to give you a second and a third and a fourth? Do you think that incentivizes the contractor to then say, okay, we got to do a really good job for her because she's going to give us a lot of business?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's up to each investor of what kind of who they want to work with and the type of people they're targeting. But in all categories, that's kind of worked really well for me, is to target people who are like not looking to learn or that they don't know what they're doing, but people who are like starting out more so, or like kind of just ready to like get to that next level, and they're hungry for it and they're looking for it. From like project managers to contractors to like people who want to do lead generation and marketing. Like I've really used that strategy a lot of targeting or working with people who are like kind of just in that bottom level, like starting out phase, but they're totally ready to grow. Like they have the potential, they have all the steps, they just need to like put the pieces together. And that was how it worked out for my contractor that I use now. We just kind of started that relationship from the beginning, and I just keep giving him all my jobs and he keeps managing them really well, so it's working out.
Perfect, perfect. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's go into. Do you have a deal maybe that we can kind of dive into? Maybe something that you learned a lot on. If you made a few mistakes, it's okay. Just a deal that maybe we can go into.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Perfect. Well, where did you find this? Well, I'm guessing it's in Louisiana, but where did you find this property?
Yes, it is in Louisiana. It's in an area just outside of New Orleans called Avondale. And this property came from a cold call.
Okay, great. And are you doing the cold calls yourself? Are you hiring out for that?
This was actually done by someone who did it for me. They were calling through some lead lists that I have, and basically I worked out a deal with them that was like, hey, this is kind of like wholesaling, except I'm your end buyer. You know, these are deals on this list that I want to buy. So if you get any of them, just I'll tell you where I can be on it and get it for less, and I'll pay you a wholesale fee on it, and I'll buy it. So that was somebody who was working through some lead lists for me, and he got a little bit of a fee on this one, and I bought it.
That's great because I mean I'm not I don't know if you are, but I personally am terrible with cold calling, and I do it, but I am absolutely terrible as far as I wake up and saying, man, I have to cold call today. So finding someone that does like doing that and it incentivizes them that, hey, I'll get a fee if I can get this below her number. Are you what are your thoughts on cold calling it yourself?
Yeah, I feel pretty similarly. I'm sure probably a lot of people do. It's like one of those things, kind of a drag, to have to do. But I've done it a lot, and I think it's a really good thing to do a lot, especially as you're starting out. It just teaches you so much about just talking to people and having that confidence over the phone. So that way, later down the line, when somebody else is kind of sifting through all the calls for you and all the no's, and then to try to find those really hot, like really good leads and pass them along, like you have the experience. You're not just starting from zero and you get this hot lead. Like you actually know totally what you're doing. You can handle the more selective leads to call for yourself.
Definitely. So, okay, so you found this property. Now, like how much of a renovation is this property need?
Yeah, the property was actually found like probably 2 months after the big hurricane hit the South last year, Hurricane Ida. So a lot of properties in this particular neighborhood got hit really bad. This one, the seller ended up wanting to sell it because of that. It did get hit by the hurricane. There was some water damage and drywall damage inside, as well as a big hole in the roof. It needed a new roof. And some repairs, but it wasn't like completely destroyed. It was like a halfway to a full-on gut job and halfway to just like a very simple cosmetic. It was somewhere in the middle.
Gotcha. Okay. So once you closed on this property, what'd you purchase it for?
75,000.
75,000. Okay, great. And once you close on this property, I mean, you kind of mentioned it there, but what kind of finishes did you put into the property? And I know you kind of said that it had a lot of water damage and drywall and whatnot, but like how? I guess what I'm asking is, how high scale do you do your flips? Obviously, it's market specific, but.
Yeah, this is kind of a funny one for me to run through because it's sort of the opposite of how I do almost all of my flips, and I can go through some reasons on why I did it this way for this one. But in general, I like to do my flips 1 to 2 tiers above my competition as far as like design, quality, look goes. So I wanna be a flip that's priced almost the same, maybe just like a very slight bit more than the competition that's also putting flips on the market. But I want it to look like at least 1 or 2 levels better than everything else that's coming on for a similar price point. Not by spending a lot of extra money, but just by choosing like certain colors or certain designs to make it look a little higher end. This particular property that we're going over though, I actually did the opposite. Not the total opposite, but I didn't put like a super high end design into this one. And the reason is the house was a rental property before I purchased it. So it wasn't honestly like in terrible condition. It wasn't super outdated. It just had like a lot of damage to it from the hurricane and just wear and tear from the tenants. So there were a bunch of things in this home that I actually felt were worth saving. I could save money on the reno and target just a slightly lower price point because I wasn't going to do as high end of a reno and still make a really good profit. So that was my strategy on this one.
No, I think that's a huge learning point right now for real estate investors that are just beginning maybe in flipping or are currently. You don't have to go in there and make it the Taj Mahal. You can go in there and, like you said, you can save certain things in a property, and it doesn't mean you're bad at being a flipper. You're trying to take advantage of someone selling it to someone for such a high price. It's just because, you went in there, there's things you can save, and you don't have to go in there and put the granite countertops and put all this like amazing flash into a property to make it a successful flip. So like you even said, you target it to a lower price point that made sense for the finishes in the house. So it's just another strategy of flipping that, you don't have to be a high scale flipper all the time. Not saying you, I'm just saying in general, a flipper that comes in doesn't have to put all the high finishes in. But no, I mean, so what were you looking for as far as a profit in this property? And, what would you end up selling it for?
Yeah, so this is probably the part of the deal where I learned some things, and it turned out really well, but it was really cool. So my target was, I thought that if I did like a really nice reno, because I had just done a really nice reno that was the same type of house in this neighborhood, and it had sold for like 170. So I thought that if I did it really, really nice, I could sell for 170, possibly a little bit more, 175. So I was shooting to make it a little less nice and sell it for like 160, 165. So that was the goal. So I put it up on the market. I thought like kind of on the high end. I was like, let's list it for 165. Let's see what happens. The reno ended up costing about $45,000. So I was all into the deal, 75 on the purchase, 45 on the reno, and then listed it for 165. And, this is something I learned is like really crucial to know your specific neighborhood and your market and know what buyers are looking for. I didn't actually really even know this about the neighborhood, but looking around, most of the houses that were there or like listed on the market there typically were 3-bed, 1-bath or 3-bed, 1.5-bath. My home was a 3-bed, 2-bath. And I learned during selling this house that that's really important to buyers in this area. Like, there's not a ton of 3-bed, 2-bath, and they really favored the 3-bed, 2-bath homes when it came to buying. So I was expecting to sell for a little bit lower. I didn't do a super high-end reno on it, and we actually ended up selling it for 185. Got bid up super high.
Wow.
Got a ton of offers, and huge thing, like the feedback was people loved that it had 2 baths. It also had a really great layout, so it flowed really well, which some of the other homes in that area, like they just weren't as open concept and stuff. So things that honestly I wasn't even expecting to really sell the house just kind of did, and that was a good lesson for me as well. Just paying attention to some of those little details, whether the house has it or doesn't have it in the future purchases, to know how much that could actually affect your resale value.
Wow. No. Yeah, 100%. I actually never thought about it that way. I never knew that, it could be obviously, like, I'm a real estate agent, so I obviously know that, having an extra bathroom, even a half bath makes a difference. But putting it in perspective of flipping, I personally didn't even think about that. So you saying that got my mind spinning. So that's awesome. But yeah, so can you talk about real quick, the cost associating with selling a property?
Yeah, absolutely. The costs that I usually pay for my real estate agent is 5% of the sales price. Some might do it for a little bit more or a little bit less. but I usually pay 5%. So 5% of 185 is what you're taking the 5% off of. And then that's just to pay for the real estate agent to handle the marketing, the sale, doing all the paperwork. Also, there'll be closing costs that come from the title and escrow companies to actually run like title search on the home, to record the paperwork, all the wire fees, things like that. So those, for that price range of deal that I'm doing, somewhere in the high 100s on the resale, my closing costs are usually between like $1,000 and $1,500 on the resale, and pretty similar on the purchase as well. So usually somewhere in the $2,000 to $3,000 range for both my purchasing closing costs and my resale closing costs, and then 5% for the realtor.
Gotcha. And I know you're not a tax advisor, but I mean, are you? I don't know. But okay. With the with the capital gains, how do you kind of situate that?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is just like something I've kind of heard, and I'm also working with dealing with myself. So don't take this advice as like I'm not a tax advisor, but there's definitely like different tax brackets that you can get in. You're either considered a like an investor, like this is what you do for a business, and once you get to that level, you're actually not really taxed on capital gains anymore. You're taxed as a 1099 self-employed business person. And so at that point, when you're doing like multiple deals at a time and per year, and you're seen as a real estate investor, this is your job, the capital gains would actually be a wonderful thing to be taxed on, because that rate is so much lower than the 1099 self-employment tax rate. So once you get to that point, which is kind of where I'm at, and like deciding and doing these different things, you can like form different types of LLCs or corporations to get taxed at a more like flat tax business type rate versus being like a self-employed 1099. But if you're just doing a couple of flips per year, it's nothing that's full time, you can get away with the capital gains tax rate, which people like say in kind of a scary way, or like, oh man, I'm going to get charged so much for capital gains. But honestly, if you look at the tax brackets, like capital gains tax rate, even the short-term one, is not that much higher than just like a tax rate from a W-2 job. It is higher, but it's not like crazy higher. The 1099 is where the taxes get crazy higher.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a 1099 as well, and I think the thing that kind of gets people screwed up is with a W-2, taxes already getting taken out. So when you go to sell that house and get the capital gains or whatnot, and then you got to wait till the end of the year to pay it. So you got to make sure not to spend that money, because that's not your money. That's the government's money. So I think that's maybe one thing that kind of freaks them out. But no, I wanted to ask you this question just because we kind of talked on it and touched on it real quick, but I think that confidence is obviously huge momentum boost when growing a business. And once you get to the point where you're like, I'm confident in this, that's when you can exponentially just grow. What was the point where, in your business, where you were at the point where you're like, you know what, I'm confident, I got this, and you really saw your business take off?
I would say it was a different point for both the wholesaling side and the flipping side, but for the flipping side, it was not even that long ago. It was maybe like a year or just over a year ago, in early 2021, and that was when I started raising capital, private money from friends, family, like business people that I knew, instead of just using my own capital. And that was probably the most pivotal moment for me in the flipping business. That's where I went from doing like 1 to 2 deals at a time to being able to do 4, 5, 6 at a time, however many I wanted to do, depending on how much capital I raised. So that was huge. That was a huge pivotal point for me. And not only was it pivotal in the sense of doing more deals and making more profits, but the more deals you do at a time, you learn and grow in so many other ways, just simply because you're doing more deals and you learn something from each one. But also just like you're meeting more people and you have new contacts on each one, and like your network starts to grow and your name starts to grow and all these different things. So it scales you in a lot more ways than just profit.
Yeah. You know, when you went and finally went to people and, said, hey, I'm investing in real estate. I'm doing flips. I can make you money. Well, first off, was that kind of scary, or did you kind of just show them like, look, this is what I've been doing. It's been working, kind of show them the numbers and made them feel comfortable. How did you approach that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I did a little bit of both. It's not like an easy thing to pitch. It's a little bit tough. Probably get shot down several times before get somebody to invest, or multiple people. But yeah, it had kind of just been like on my mind once I had hit a point where I had done a couple flips in New Orleans. I kind of knew the market. I had some contacts. I had a good like success story to pitch to people. I had done good deals that worked out, and made good returns. So I felt like I had a really good pitch to start marketing this to people. And that's literally what I did. I just like tried to think of anyone in my network, anyone I had met when I was wholesaling, like other investors who might have access to large amounts of capital. And I just like put together a little presentation of what I had done and the returns I had made, and pitched it around a bunch until I got a couple of people that were interested, and kind of narrowed in on like which partners would be best and which made the most sense and who wanted to scale the most and all these different things, and just kind of narrowed it in from there.
I think it's just as important to vet your contractors as it is to vet your partners, because going into a partnership, they may have different expectations that if you didn't go and kind of put them up front before going into it, they just have a different mindset as far as what's happening and the updates, whatever it may be. So I think that's huge. So no, I mean, huge congratulations to you, because you're obviously doing something that you're just killing it in the flipping right now, and at such a young age too. That's unbelievable. So I'm super excited to follow you on your Instagram and see you exceed and grow and just into this just amazing flipping Mongol or whatever it may be. So, but no. So I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. Yeah, no problem. I'm just gonna ask you a couple questions just on the outro. But first being, what's your favorite form of education? Podcast, meetups, YouTube University. What's your favorite?
I think there's like huge benefits to all the different types. But personally, my favorite has been, I guess you could call it mentorship, or like working under somebody. And I'm not really talking about the type of thing like this could be great too, but not talking about buying a course or like going and joining someone's like mentorship program that they've put together. I'd say that's more educational, like reading a book or listening to a podcast. I'm talking about you going out and doing it yourself, like learning by experience. That has always been from day one, even just like working under that real estate agent. I wasn't necessarily looking for a guaranteed like paycheck even, or job. Like I just wanted to grow. I wanted to gain the experience, provide value where I could, and know that so much value was being provided to me. So going out there and doing it from experience has always been the best form of education for me. However, like before you even do that, you can totally get at least the basics and like so much information. I'd say podcasts has probably been my favorite. Just listening to people tell their stories. At the very least, it gets you super motivated to go out there and try to do what they're doing. So a combination of those two, I'd say, has been the best for me.
Exactly. I feel like at a point you can't educate yourself anymore. You just got to go out and do something, because that's the best form of learning, like you said. So, So if anyone on this podcast listening right now can add, value to you, what would that be?
I would say if you're in the New Orleans market or like local there, and if you're wholesaling or have deals, like I'm always buying in that market. or just if you're in the market and like want to connect, always open to connecting with people that are kind of doing the same thing, running the same race, and adding value to each other. Also, always raising funds for deals, for people that want to invest, for people who want to like get started and learn, like kind of how I mentioned earlier, where I'll sometimes offer the opportunity for people to like go through our leads lists, and like if they want to start making calls or like going through leads and talking to potential sellers, and making a wholesale fee if you get something that comes through. That's always an opportunity too. So there's a lot of things. I'm like pretty invested in the specific New Orleans market right now, so for sure, if there's anyone else that's invested there or has opportunity there, that would be amazing.
Perfect. And if that listener wants to, find you on social media or anything, where can they find you?
Yeah, best place. You can check me out on Instagram at domflipsnola. I'm also on pretty most of the sites like LinkedIn, Bigger Pockets. Have a website, Gunderson Homes Nola, that you can check out. So my contact info is everywhere if you want to get in touch.
Perfect. I'll put that in the show notes too, so anyone that's interested can go down there and follow her. She has a ton of just like amazing content on her Instagram page, so make sure to give her a follow. And our last question to send it off: what is your why?
It's a good last question. I think you should definitely think about your why before you like take a journey to do anything, any type of business. Mine, I would say the main one is having the flexibility to like work for myself and work for my own hours from wherever I want, which has also been the amazing thing about out-of-state investing. I don't actually have to be there. So just having like that flexibility over your life, to be able to travel and like spend time with the people you want to spend time with, not being locked down at a desk from 9 to 5. I'd say that's like overall the biggest like thing that really compels me to like work for myself and do something like this. But there's a lot of businesses that you could do that with and be an entrepreneur in. So my why for real estate is simply, I absolutely love it. I love working on properties. I love the chase of like finding a new deal. Like real estate is just my medium that I really enjoy. So I think it's awesome when you can like create your goals, whether it's like money goals, profit, flexibility, time, whatever those things are that you want. But when you get to do it with something that you really actually enjoy, it's like just the best combination of things.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Dominique, for being on the Chasing Cashflow podcast. You've added so much value, and I think the listeners are going to love just the content that you're putting out. Like I said, I'll put your Instagram and everything in the show notes. But other than that, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome.